So, does anyone remember ever seeing those ads or articles saying, be paid to watch horror movies, and think, oh my God, that's the dream. I love horror movies. Why wouldn't I want to be paid to watch them? Only to click on the ad or the article and realize that it's not actually like a job where it's like consistent income. It's actually a one-time challenge that is awarded to one time that is awarded to one lucky horror fan, where they watch like X number of movies in certain number of days and report back certain pieces of data. I know I do. And if you do, it's probably because at least one came out this past October. I believe it was from casinonet.org. But I've actually seen these for the last several years. I think I've seen them for at least the last 5 years. I remember seeing them in 2019, I'm pretty sure. But the one that lives rent free in my brain is the one that was released in 2021 from financebuzz.com.org. Finance Buzz. I don't know what Finance Buzz is. Maybe I'll put a description up here. But basically, they released an article in 2021 saying that they would pay a lucky horror fan $1,300 if they watched a preset list of 13 horror movies and then tracked their heart rate and reported back their data. So the whole point of the project, research, challenge, contest, I don't know what it's called. The whole point of it was they were trying to look and see if a movie's budget had some impact or role in determining the number of scares the movie provided. So basically, they would have the individual track their heart rate, see how many times it peaked, and then have them report back their data, which makes sense. Finance Buzz, obviously, they're finance focused, so budget focused. Yeah, so they paid the individual $1,300. They sent them a Fitbit or some kind of other heart rate tracking device. But they also gave them like a per diem for snacks and to rent the movies or buy the movies. And then they gave them a certain number of days to watch all the movies. Now, this lives rent-free in my brain because I remember applying for it. I remember sitting there with that open text box and pouring out my heart and my soul into describing why I was the ultimate horror fan and why I should be chosen for this amazing gift and this amazing opportunity. And I was sad. I was sad when I didn't get it. I get why they didn't pick me. They picked someone with a following. I get it. But still, crushed my little Wisconsin heart just a bit. Sometimes I think, what if I had been selected? What if I had been given this gift of an opportunity to watch these horror movies and be paid for it? Or just to watch these horror movies and to track my data. And then I've decided today I'm going to complete this challenge, only I'm doing it for free because no one's paying me to do it. It's a choice.
He said, it's for free. I said, sure.
Because the only thing I love more than horror movies is a challenge. So I will be tweaking some things about the challenge because based on the article, the only rules they provided the person was they had to watch these 13 predetermined movies and they had to track their data and report it back. And they had to do it from October 9th to the 18th, which is 10 days? So I have some issues with this. Now, obviously, it's possible that they sent a list of requirements and criteria and rules to the person who was selected, and we just don't know it because we weren't selected. Reminder, I didn't get picked. I don't know. But let's pretend they didn't. Let's say that really all it was they gave you these 13 movies and they gave you these 10 days to watch them. So in my head, that's not very scientific. My biggest issue is obviously 13 movies in 10 days means that you are watching at least 2 movies or multiple movies on at least a few of the days because, I mean, if I'm mathing right, 13 is bigger than 10, so you can't even watch one movie a day, which I think is an issue. So we're going to change it. We're going to make it 13 days. We're going to watch one horror movie a day for 13 days. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd probably like double the time so I could have a palate cleanser day, but I don't want to make it that long. So that is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we are watching one movie a day for 13 days. Next rule, we were going to watch them at the same time of day every day because obviously our bodies fluctuate and our bodies are these weird systems. So like, I think it helps control for things if we are watching them at the same point of the day, but also because of lighting and whether or not it's light or dark out, like that's going to impact how scary things are. Luckily for me, it's winter in Wisconsin right now, so all I know is darkness. So yeah, it's going to be pretty easy to watch everything in the dark. But also, we'll make sure that we kind of monitor our internal lighting to make sure that that's not too different. Ideally the same. I don't have a lot of lights, so it's fine. Darkness. Another thing I will make sure to control is to make sure that I am watching them in the same location, also that I will be watching all of them alone. So obviously if we watch something with another person, we might be less scared. That could impact our heart rate. Also, I'm not allowed to do anything else while I'm watching these movies, obviously, because that could impact my heart rate. So I'm not gonna be able to scroll. I'm not gonna be able to eat dinner, I guess. Yeah, I won't be able to eat dinner. I'm not gonna be able to just get up randomly and start like walking in place. That might sound weird, but I actually do that a lot because, again, it's winter in Wisconsin. It's cold outside. Gotta walk inside. So won't be able to just get up and start doing random physical activity like I normally might. Also, like, I will only be allowed to drink water during. I think it's funny that they allowed the per diem for like snacks and stuff because, you know, chocolate, caffeine, sugar, stuff like that can obviously impact your heart rate. Also alcohol can. So I'm just gonna be drinking water because hydration is important. And also I'm not going to record myself while I'm watching the movies because it's pretty well documented that when people know that they're being observed, they will act differently. That includes our brains and our bodies. So we're not going to record me. I'm not going to record me. You won't either. While I'm watching the movies, I'll probably do like a pre and a post clip, or at least a post clip of some sort. But yeah, so those are the main pieces of criteria to try and make this as scientific and as controlled as possible. Again, I'm shocked that they didn't do that the first time, being so official. But okay, and the most important part, again, this list that they have of these 13 movies, I don't know. It doesn't say you're supposed to watch them in that exact order. It just says you have to watch the movies from the list. So I think it's also way more scientific to do a randomized selection of when I watch the movies. So obviously I think random selection is always important because obviously watching one thing before another could potentially impact how you feel about that second item. Because if you watch something really scary on day 7 and then your movie you watch on day 8 it could potentially seem less scary if the movie you watched on day 7 was really scary. And so that could be impactful. I don't know. So if we randomly generate the order of which we watch things, it just makes it a little less biased, a little more objective is what we're going for here, because science, data, research. All right, so the way I'm choosing to randomize the movie selection is I'm going to use the free spinner wheel, aka spin the wheel. So the 13 movies are listed right here. I'm going to slowly go through. I'm sure we don't need to watch me do this for all of them, but just for fun to get it started. So, all right, that's not annoying at all. Oh. All right, so A Quiet Place Part 2 is going to be movie number 1. I think I'm going to stop the sound actually on this because that is annoying. Let's see what movie number 2 is. Super annoying. Ooh. Insidious. It's still making noise. Why is it doing? Our next victim is going to be... That's better. Saw. So the original Saw. All right.
2 hours later.
We're getting down there. Only 3 more movies left. I was wondering when this one was going to pop up. Next we have Sinister. Yep. I'm curious to see how that lawnmower scene does for me, but, you know, whatever. So let's see what our last movies are. So we're obviously going to figure out 12 and 13 based on this last spin. So movie 12 will be Halloween, and last will be Paranormal Activity. So these are the movies I will be watching and reporting back how they impact my heart rate. I have a little like Excel sheet going. So these are the movies I'll be watching for this challenge. Here we go. Let's see how this goes. All right, so we are about to watch the first movie of the challenge, A Quiet Place Part 2. That came out in, I believe, 2021. I think it was supposed to come out during the pandemic and then it got delayed. So I have only seen this movie once and I did not see it in theaters. I saw it once it went to streaming. So I probably have seen this movie more recently than some of the other movies on the list. It is relatively dark. It's dark outside, but yeah, I've got some mood lighting, no bright lights. I'm on my couch. I got my water. We're gonna watch this. It's about an hour and a half, and we're gonna see how it goes. All right, bye. Day 2 of the challenge. We're watching Insidious. Fun fact, I did see this in the theaters when it came out, but I don't think I've seen it probably since like 2012, 2013, so a few years after it came out. Also, this is apparently the only one I actually own a DVD to. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, so we're gonna give this a watch. I think this one's gonna provide me a lot more scares than A Quiet Place Part 2, but we shall see. Day 5 of the challenge. Full honesty, I have not watched the movies in consecutive days. That was a little more challenging than I originally thought, but I am still watching only one horror movie a day. So it's day 5, which is taking us all the way back to the 70s for the original Amityville Horror. I'm pretty sure, I'm 90% sure I've seen this movie. I know I've seen the remake from 2005 with Ryan Reynolds, and I know I've seen several of the sequels. Assuming I have seen this, it would not have been since I was like in a late elementary, early middle school. Thanks, Mom and Dad. So it would have been a while. It's gonna be like a first time watch for me. Fun fact, it is the oldest movie on this list, coming from 1979. It is also the longest movie on this list, coming in at like just shy of 2 hours, which is pretty long for a horror movie. So I'm excited. All right, so let's see how this goes. Day 5. Starting movie number 7, officially at the halfway point, and movie number 7 is Get Out, which I'm very excited to watch because I've only actually seen it once. I didn't see it in theaters. I didn't see it until it came out on streaming. And oh my god, Bradley Whitford. Such a great actor. Amazing villain. I think he has played some of the most iconic villains of our time.
And what do we do with the menace? We eliminate it. We eliminate Billy Madison.
So I'm very much looking forward to rewatching this. Intrigued to see what happens heart rate wise. Movie number 9, and if you can't tell by my awesome hat, it is The Blair Witch Project. I'm wearing this hat in honor of it, also because it's really cool, but I'm trying to channel the characters of the movie by wearing my beanie, my teeny weeny beanie. So The Blair Witch Project, I'm very excited. This whole day I thought I was supposed to be watching The Purge, and then I got home and realized it was The Blair Witch Project. I was pleasantly excited. I've actually watched this in the last 6 months though. This is probably one of the movies I've actually watched the most recently, so I don't know how that's going to impact things, but it's also one of the shortest movies. It is under 90 minutes. It's like 80. I think it is the shortest movie on this list. It's 81 minutes, so that's pretty short. I did not see this in theaters because I was not of age to. I do remember renting it as soon as I could from Blockbuster though, and getting nauseous watching the camera motions. Scared the bejesus out of me. Yeah, so I'm excited. Day 11, which is the day that I have both been looking forward to and dreading. Today is the day I watch Sinister. So Sinister, easily in my top 20 favorite horror movies of all time. I saw it in theaters and it traumatized me so much that I could not watch it for several years afterwards. So I'm looking forward to watching it because it's so good. But also for this entire challenge, I have tried not to cover my eyes, plug my ears, look away, be distracted. And there is a scene in Sinister that I don't think I've ever fully exposed myself to, that I don't think I've ever fully watched or heard at the same time. So I'm gonna have to watch it and hear it. It's the lawnmower scene. So I'm intrigued to see how that goes, but I'm very excited. So we have 2 more movies after this and then the challenge is done. It went on way longer than I planned, but I'm looking forward to it. So, all right, let's get Sinister. All right, movie number 13, which is Paranormal Activity. And after this, we're done and we get to look at all the data. So I remember seeing Paranormal Activity in the theaters when it came out in like 2009, and I remember not sleeping that night. So I actually think that this is also a movie I've watched in the last 6 months. So don't know if that's gonna impact anything, but let's go. Done, finished, and bye. All right, so the results. What happened? What did I find out? Well, the main thing I found out is it is incredibly challenging for me to sit for 90 plus minutes at home watching a movie and do absolutely nothing else. Obviously, it was easier to do that for some movies, also known as the movies I find more enjoyable or more entertaining, but that was actually ridiculously hard. And it's funny, I don't think of myself as someone who is incredibly tied to my phone, but I think after doing this challenge, well, It might be just a little bit. All right. So with regards to the actual results from the challenge, so first, and I know I mentioned it, I believe in a clip that you should have already seen, but full transparency, I did not watch the 13 movies in 13 consecutive days. What I found out was that that wasn't really feasible with all of the other restrictions I was putting on it, like all the other rules and regulations I was kind of putting on it, all the other things I was trying to control for. It wasn't possible to do that and manage my full-time job, my personal life, my sleep, and my stress level. I couldn't not go to work. I have to respect that I don't live alone. Also, I didn't want to feel stressed. I didn't want this to be something that caused me to feel unhappy or stressed. It's supposed to be fun. And so I decided to be flexible on the 13 consecutive days part, because by doing that, I was able to maintain all of the other rules that I was trying to follow. So because of that, I was able to watch every movie on an isolated day of its own. I was able to watch it from the same location, but from the same point of time and day. It was always dark out. I was always alone. I was never eating or having any kind of external distraction. Sometimes my brain might be distracted, but I can't control that. Okay, I can. It's hard. But I was not ever doing anything else. It was always fully just me focusing on the movie. And again, by myself in the dark. Same lighting setup too. I would light this one candle. It was beautiful ambiance. But yes, I successfully did that. So big check mark there. Again, had to compromise on 13 days. So instead of doing it over 2 weeks, I did it over 3.5 weeks or something like that. So yeah, but otherwise everything else was great. What else did I find? Well, so I found the actual article where they reported on the results from the analyst that they selected. That's what they refer to her as. I think they call her the scare analyst. Is that what they call her? Sorry, horror movie heart rate analyst was the title they gave her. So I actually found the article where they announced it was her. She was someone with a TikTok following. And then they also found the article where they actually reported on her findings, which I was really happy to find. So one of my big questions was how did my results compare to hers? I was curious if we had the same results. And so what they did is they actually reported on beats per minute, the highest beats per minute during each movie. And then they also had her give it a scare rating from 1 to 10. It was basically just how scared she felt while watching the movie. And they kind of graphed it to see along with what the budget actually was. I don't think they actually showed her ranking of what she thought the budget was. No, so my assumption is that their assumption is that the highest scares is the highest budget. That is what I'm going with throughout the rest of this video. That is my assumption. More money equals more scares. That is what I think that they're theorizing, or why they did this. But yeah, so if I look at beats per minute, which I don't think is the best way to judge this, by the way, the highest beats per minute I had was 84. It was during The Purge. The lowest heart rate I had was 53 beats per minute. It was during The Purge. The Purge was a roller coaster. My 84 to 53 happened consecutively. I went from an 84 to a 53 in 6 minutes. So that's a 31 point beat per minute drop, which is the richest. It's just so funny. I was surprised to see that The Purge had my highest beat per minute. I was not surprised that it had that drop in it also. There was one other movie where I had the low of 53. That was Annabelle. Also wasn't too shocked. Those movies, I think both of those movies start off kind of strong, and then they kind of they really fizzle out. I think the beginning of Annabelle was scary because it covers kind of that Manson family and the cults and the possession piece, but I don't think it definitely didn't hold my attention. If you look at my graph, it did not hold my attention. And I think for The Purge, it's almost like an inverted bell curve where I think it starts off strong and then the middle is super meh, and then the end gets good again. Yeah, The Purge I think was probably one of the most disappointing movies for me. Maybe not the most disappointing, but I think the concept is so terrifying, and that I probably went in there with too high of expectations, and then they weren't able to execute it as well as I had built it up in my brain. Anyway, other movies where my heart rate was higher were Saw. I had 81. Paranormal Activity. I had 81. Annabelle. I had 81. Again, that movie, I don't know. And then Sinister, I had 80. And then A Quiet Place Part 2, I had 80. So, yeah. I'll just put them all like right over. Put them over here by Jeffrey so you can see them. So again, I don't think this is the best way to measure how scary something is, because I think like how high your heart rate will go is it can be impacted by your health and cardiovascular health and stress level and so many things. I do think that a good way to measure it is to look at how many like spikes or peaks you had while watching something, but more specifically the frequency of the spikes. So that is what I'm choosing to look at. I'll look at the BPM, obviously. I'll look at a graph of that too. But I want to look at like the spikes and the frequency of spikes, because I think that is a way better measure of how scary something is. So if I look at the number of spikes that my heart rate experienced while watching these movies, the highest number of spikes I had was 7. And that actually happened for 3 different movies. So one movie was Get Out, which I was shocked and I wasn't shocked. I've only seen Get Out once prior. And I remember like loving the movie because it's a great movie. But I don't remember feeling that like, it's not a jump scare movie. So like, I don't recall feeling those like moments of, I don't know what that was. I don't recall feeling those moments of intense fear. It's definitely a psychological, a little bit of a slow burn, but so good. And it's funny because obviously my body was reacting to it, even if I am not aware of it. So I think it's a very, I don't know if I call it visceral movie. It's a very like human reaction to that movie. It's very, very good. So that I was happy with. The next one, Amityville Horror. The original Amityville Horror from the 70s. So that also had 7. Now, I'm going to say that this happened probably because, again, I think I mentioned this in a clip, but if I didn't, this is the first time I've actually seen this movie. I thought I had seen it before, apparently not. I'd seen the remake, I'd seen several of the sequels, but I'd never actually seen the original Amityville Horror. So I think that probably had something to do with it. So even though I knew the concept, like I didn't really know physically what was going to happen or visually what was going to happen. Also, it's the longest movie of all the movies we watched. It was the longest movie. So it is longer than Get Out. It is longer than the other movie I had 7 spikes. So I think that is also a factor. That's why we're going to be looking at frequency of spikes. And the third movie that I had 7 spikes, Sinister. This does not shock me. Sinister scares the bejesus out of me. I think it is one of the scariest movies that has ever happened, occurred, experienced, been made, whatever you want to call it. And I think that it was, if I'm correct, the scariest movie for a very long time based on heart rate. So those were the 3 movies where I had 7s. They were the most spikes. I had 3 movies where I had a 6th spike. Or I had 6 spikes. Those were Saw, Insidious, and Halloween from 2018. I think all those make sense. Saw is a movie I definitely find scary, or at least intense. Insidious, I remember like being very afraid of it. I think still held up. I haven't seen it in a very long time. I haven't seen Saw in a very long time either. And then Halloween 2018, very good. I think I like that better than the original Halloween. I don't know if that's a hot take. Sorry, Michael. And then I had 2 movies I had 5 spikes. I had Paranormal Activity and The Blair Witch Project. Now, these are 2 movies that I hold up as being on my top, like, 20 list, 100%. Terrifying. In their own ways, both found footage. They definitely would give me at least 5 spikes. Yeah, I had 4 movies with 4 spikes. I had The Purge and Annabelle. Those 2 are just buddy-buddy.
We're like twins.
And then I had A Quiet Place, and I had Candyman. I'd say Candyman makes sense. It's from the 90s, so it's a little, like, dated, but I think overall it's a very solid story. I love things that have urban legends. Then I'd say A Quiet Place. A Quiet Place is a great movie. Is it a super scary movie? I don't think so, with the exception of the nail. Obviously, that's the scariest part of that whole movie. So that is probably where all my spikes came from, is every time they showed that damn nail. But yeah, and then I had one movie where I only had 2 spikes, and that was the lowest number of spikes I had, and that was A Quiet Place 2. I have the opinion that A Quiet Place 2 did not need to be its own movie. I think they should have made A Quiet Place longer and weaved all that stuff into the first movie. I get that the end of the first movie loses some of its impact and maybe some of its emotion if we do that, but I think it would have been better had they just extended the first movie and like put the beginning of part 2, which is on about day 1, put that at the beginning of part 1, and then show the beginning of part 1, and then go on to present day, and then, have the stuff happen, and then go to the present day of part 2. Just an opinion. I'm not telling you how you guys want to do your job. I think that, for me, would have worked better. Still a great movie, great cast, great acting, good story, fun concept. But in my head, should have been one movie. So I think frequency is the better measure of how scary something is, or the frequency of the spikes, because obviously movies are not all the same length. If a movie is longer and it has the same number of spikes as a shorter movie, the shorter movie is scarier. It got you the same number of scares in a smaller amount of time. That is the scarier movie. So in my head, frequency is the best way to look at this. So if we look at frequency, this would be the list. So we have Get Out at the top with a scare every 14.86 minutes. Next would be Sinister, then Blair Witch, and going down our list right here with A Quiet Place 2 coming up in last place with a scare every 48.5 minutes. So basically, one scare every half of the movie. So this is the ranking then. So in theory, if we think a budget can predict the number of scares, the more frequently the scares, the higher the budget. In theory. Again, they didn't really say, so they're not doing a good job. But that means that Get Out would have the highest budget. Sinister would have the second highest. Blair Witch Project would have the third, and so on and so on and so on. If you're somewhat familiar with horror movie budgets or horror movie production lore, I don't know what to call it, there are 3 movies that have notoriously really low budgets. And they're in the top part of the list. So we know that this is not accurate already just looking at it, but this is the ranking it would be. But obviously this is not good enough. We have to look at the actual data. So I did graph it, and I should show you that. So this, again, is the ranking of where the budget should be. And these are the actual budgets for these movies. So if we were to actually graph it, it would look something like this. So when you're trying to obviously look for a relationship between things, you want to see kind of form a line in some shape, way, or form. You want it to be linear in some shape. And basically, when you're trying to look at the relationship between 2 different items or variables, you want to look at something called the correlation coefficient. It's going to tell you if those things are related or not, or if they have a strong or weak relationship. A strong relationship would be represented by a correlation coefficient of 1 or -1, depending if the relationship is positive or negative. So positive being that as one goes up, the other goes up, and a negative relationship or inverse relationship, meaning that as one goes up, the other goes down. That's just a little refresher from high school statistics right there. So you want to see a correlation coefficient that is as close to 1 as possible or as close to -1. And the closer it gets to 0, it means that there's a weaker relationship. So the correlation coefficient is actually 0.8858. So that's actually pretty strong. So, and if you look at the graph, it kind of almost looks like it's starting to form a line, or at least there's 5 of them that are actually almost in a line. So there's a relationship, and it's relatively strong. But it's not the relationship that I think Finance Buzz thought they were going to show, because this is showing that the higher the budget, the higher the time between scares, so the lower the frequency. So in theory, we want to see a negative relationship, not a positive relationship here. So we want to see a line going this way, not this way, because a negative relationship in this situation means that as the budget increased, the frequency would increase. But if the frequency is increasing, that means the time between scares or spikes is actually going down. So we'd be increasing our budget as the time between scares went down. So it'd be an inverse relationship. So it should actually be closer to a -1, but what we have is closer to a +1, which means it's the opposite. At least for me it is. So apparently I am more frightened by things with lower budgets. And I don't think I'm alone. I think that when something has a lower budget, it feels more authentic, more real, more gritty. It's more immersive. It's more believable. I think that's one of the reasons people are so afraid of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They thought it was real. I know that's not one of the movies we're looking at, but that's the whole piece, is that, how believable is it? And I think when we have something that's highly produced and has a lot of money thrown at it, it can still be enjoyable. It can still be visually beautiful. But I think sometimes it's so produced or overproduced that we're very aware we're watching a movie and we don't necessarily feel like it could happen, like it is happening to us. like it is happening to someone. I think this is like why found footage movies tend to be so scary. They're in like my top of the different kinds of subgenres because you're experiencing it with the person. That's why like Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch Project are scary to me. And probably why Sinister also frightens me a little bit because it's not found footage, but it is found footage. It's like partially found footage. Anyways, but yeah, so the correlation coefficient is strong, but strong saying that a lower budget movie is actually going to equal more scares, at least for me as a person. I was curious also if there was a correlation between my spikes or like my highest beat per minute and budget. And so that graph looks like this. So no, it's almost zero. So yeah, there's like no relationship between having like where my beats per minute were and what the budgets of the movie were. So I'd say we're going to stick with the frequency being the better factor here to look at and saying that there is a relationship, a moderate to strong one, and that it is that a bigger budget does not equal more scares, and that a lower budget can actually equal more scares for me as a person, and that having a higher budget might actually negatively impact the experience for a person watching it if you're looking at scares specifically. Yeah, the other thing I was curious about is I wanted to see what the other horror movie heart rate analyst, like what her experience was. So I was able to find that article. Yeah, so it was, are high budget or low budget horror movies scarier? They have the answer. So this is what her graphs, wait, is that their full graph? There's the full graph. Okay, this is what the graphs looked like. So again, she gave it like a scare rating. I'm not gonna do that. I mean, in their head, it was looking at if her brain and her body were on track. So like if she gave something a high scare rating, like did it also have the highest beat per minute for her? And I think what they found is it didn't, because like she gave Saw a 3. And that was the highest like beat per minute that she had. So our brain and our body are always connected. I think that's just a given. Yeah, and her stuff, like, it definitely doesn't show a correlation. It's all just clumped. Like, I don't think they did a good job graphing this. That's my own opinion. But anyways, yeah, she talks about how she wasn't really that scared by Saw and that it was actually her highest beat per minute, but it was actually one of the lower budget movies because it is. It's in the bottom. But she also talks about how she doesn't really like found footage. She calls them documentary style. I'm going to call them found footage. So she wasn't a huge fan of Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch Project. But let's go look at how she reviewed these other movies. Yeah, so Quiet Place 2 had the highest budget. Paranormal Activity had the lowest budget, followed by Blair Witch and Saw, which I knew that they had low budgets. Insidious, I forgot, had a low budget. The Purge and Sinister also had pretty low budgets. Get Out, I was not aware that Get Out had such a low budget. Probably because it has Bradley Whitford in it. I assumed it cost more because he's a phenomenal actor. Yeah, and then Quiet Place 2 having the highest budget, and Amityville Horror and Candyman, when adjusted for inflation, having also the higher budgets, which is interesting because those were like three that did not get my, well, I guess they got my heart rate up, but not consistently. So, one hit wonders. All right, so looking at her reviews, yeah, one of her favorite movies was A Quiet Place 2. So she fits with the budget piece, scare wise. Insidious had a low budget, so I guess that didn't fit. A Quiet Place, she liked. Sinister, she gave a 7. I'd give it higher than that, even though some parts were really cheesy. I wonder what parts she thinks were cheesy. Was it the like officer, deputy, so-and-so parts? Because those aren't cheesy. Those are funny and wholesome in my opinion, but all right. Let's see. Get Out, 7. It's not scary as much as it is super creepy. I would agree and disagree because I think it's scary. It's just not like jump scary. It's a different kind of terror. Halloween, yeah, I'd agree with that. Candyman, I don't know. I think I'd probably put Candyman and Amityville Horror lower, but that's my own personal taste. Annabelle, I'd probably put lower. The Purge, I'd say Purge is a perfect 5 movie. Again, great concept. Execution could have been better. I'd give Saw higher than a 3. I think it's way scarier than that. Blair Witch Project, I'd give higher than a 2. But I understand people's, I understand people having that opinion, though. I think that maybe I'm more affected by that because I'm an outdoorsy person, and it'd be terrifying to be lost in the woods. Paranormal Activity, a 2. I found this one especially cheesy. I don't agree with you. It is not cheesy. It is terrifying. The acting wasn't great, and there wasn't anything that scared me, which is why I'm confused why my heart rate jumped at all. It wasn't scary, but it was definitely entertaining. But it was definitely entertaining. Yeah. So I don't think I would agree 100%. Like, I think our lows and our highs are not the same. Like, the ones we find really scary and the ones we find not so scary. But that's, again, I think horror and film is very, very subjective. And that's one of the great things about it. Like, 10 people can watch the same movie and have 10 very different experiences. That's what makes it so cool about art and film. I don't think I'd ever call Sinister cheesy, though, my personal opinion.
Okay, so I'm editing and I realized I never explicitly stated this, but the horror movie heart rate analyst and I actually had the same outcome, verdict, findings. We found that the horror movies with the lower budgets actually did provide us with the most scares. Again, we looked at scares differently because they did the beats per minute and I did frequency of scares, because the four movies that gave her the highest beat per minute were Saw, Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, and Halloween 2018. 3 of those we know, notoriously low budgets. So that is me explicitly stating that because I realized I never did. I went on my little tangents. So, yep. Bye.
So to sum it up, horror is subjective. It is hard to sit for 90 plus minutes and do nothing. And the big takeaway from this is that a higher budget does not mean that it is going to be a more terrifying or scary movie. It's going to be impacted by personal taste, obviously. But for some of us, like me, a lower budget movie is actually potentially going to be way more entertaining. So that was everything I found based on this challenge. We did it. It's done. It's complete. Mission fulfilled. Dream fulfilled. So yeah, of the 13 movies, the movie I think is the scariest is Sinister. I would love to hear which movie you think is the scariest down below. Please let me know. That rhymes all the time. And I greatly appreciate you being here and watching this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.
I just want to say I'm sorry to my mom and to Josh's mom. This was my project. Can't say bye.